Time for some more of the Pontus campaign. Last time we got surprised when Atropatkan suddenly declared war on us, taking some of our territory, but we immediately pushed back, destroying many of their armies and even taking a ton of territory from them. In one case we fought a decisive battle and annihilated them while they were hiding on this annoying wooded hill. Then we gave them a bit more of a chance against us by making a difficult attack against one of their settlements, but that went surprisingly well thanks to a few elephants. We will still have to fight them again because it was technically a sally. They attacked us with one unit and then we fought the garrison in the field. Our army's not in the best shape since we had lots of low quality infantry that took damage while we were waiting for the elephants to do their work in that fight. But still, we're going to have a big advantage over the enemy overall now. So all we need to do is get into the next turn and come back to the siege. Now we can do a siege attack and just auto-resolve what's left of the army inside and the garrison, which was not much of it. We are now going to be even weaker than we were before, plus we took siege attrition over the end turn, so this army, Arabizana's force, is going to be in really no fit state to do anything right now. Hopefully it won't have to do anything. We liberate this area because this is part of Syria to the south, so we don't want to be capturing territory there. We'll just get rid of our enemy and now walk home, and we do need to go home because Hayasstan's looking particularly rebellious right now. They don't want to be ruled by our glorious Mithridatic kingdom. We can also expand our territory in this region by having Mithridates himself quickly attack this walled city which he had under siege. The garrison inside was nothing special, so we just kill them right away and we'll move on in, taking losses surprisingly concentrated on Mithridates himself, very out of character for him. Now this completes a mission for us, which I had forgotten about, so that's very nice, get some free money because of that, and brings us relatively close now to actually controlling a province. We need 2 provinces to get our new bonus objectives, from which we'll decide what to do next. We get a military access deal there with the Egyptian Empire, not particularly useful for either side I think, but they just randomly proposed it, so I accepted it in order to help get better relations with that gigantic neighbour of ours. Sparta want a defensive alliance. I wasn't really sure about this, but I decided to just go for it anyway on the off chance it comes in useful, and if they call us into any wars we'll probably just reject since that's not very helpful for us. Now Rhodos also want military access. This is a tiny bit awkward because they control Bithynia, which we need to complete our home province. So again, just because of the complexities and annoyances of how the province system works, we have to regard these people as our enemies even though they're effectively our allies right now. I accepted their military access deal for now in order to essentially fool them, just lull them into a false sense of security, but they are going to have to be our enemies at some point. Hopefully their armies will go off and do something else if they don't consider us to be a threat, and we'll just storm in later. Now we did get a rebellion unfortunately, and it just attacked one of our towns. Considered fighting this, thought we might be able to bring them down. Their army looked so seductively small. It seemed like it couldn't possibly be that powerful, or be as powerful as the balance bar was saying it was, but in the end I thought, no, we've been fooled by the fact that garrison units are really terrible before. They're worse than they seem, so we'll just let them lose and the rebels can take the settlement, and it's not going to be a huge deal because we do have our army standing right outside it now. So we can get it back instantly, and they won't really have much of a garrison to defend themselves, and we already know they don't have much in terms of an actual army. So Ariobarzanes just walks over. His army's still half dead, but hopefully it will be enough to crush its way in, and obviously it is according to the balance bar, so we'll just kill those guys. Lots of townsfolk who don't really influence the balance of power. So we're now back in control of 3 of the 4 regions of Hayastan, and now we want to start thinking about taking the other one. There was a rebellion back down to the south that Mithridates could in theory have gone to fight, but we're going to ignore it just because I want to complete this province here. Storming forwards and attacking the final settlement. Not much of a garrison again, lots of trash spears and mob units, so we'll just wipe them aside. We did actually lose a couple of decent units in that auto-resolve somehow. I guess they were half dead after the last one. So that is a shame, but hopefully there won't be any more battles because I'm going straight to Atropatkan and saying, can we get peace? They agreed to it and we got some money off them as well. So we have now humiliated them. We've taken a full province. We now control Armenia, and we don't really want to carry on against Atropatkan because that territory down there is the area of the map I want to avoid because that's where I was in the last campaign essentially. So I'd rather go in the other direction, so we need to go and attack Bithynia essentially, as I mentioned. First, we'll just quickly kill these rebels. Ariobarzanes came down to finish them off, just to secure the province, and with help from the garrison that will be okay. Now he's going to stay in Armenia just in case there are more rebellions, and because we really need to hold this place. We need to make sure that it's not just going to get invaded by one of its many neighbours, including Atropatkan again, who might come back for revenge. So we'll leave Ariobarzanes as the standing army to defend against such a move. Now, several turns later, we've moved Mithridates and the main force all the way over to the other side of our kingdom to take a look at Rhodes. And I've got my spy having a little look at what they've actually got in the city that we want. They've got quite a lot is the answer. They've got an almost full stack and an almost full stack garrison, plus their walls. Overall going to be a little bit difficult to actually take that from them. But we need to do it. We're going to obey the rules of forcing ourselves to do the objectives, the chapter objectives, in order to make things move along. Now, I wanted to end my military access deal with them in preparation for this attack, but apparently I needed to wait 4 turns, so instead I just ended my non-aggression pact and will now very politely wait the 4 turns before ending the deal, because I can actually use that time to my advantage. I've got a tiny bit of a profit right now, so I'm going to refit my main force to make it better. Since we are anticipating some difficult battles potentially coming up on the horizon, I thought having fewer trash units and more reliable units would be nice. And I'm also going to replace my slingers with archers. Even though they have a lower range, they're overall better as skirmishers go, so they'll make our army a tiny bit more powerful. While we sorted that out, we learned that we've got a new member of our royal family, a new heir, Mithridates II. I think this is the son of Ariobarzanes, so that's nice. We'll go into the family tree and take a look at him. While I was doing this, I actually noticed we've got 2 Ariobarzaneses in our dynasty, so I'm not sure which one's which. I've been assuming the second one is the heir, because that's who I was using, but it might have actually been the first one, who knows. So here's our new guy, Mithridates II. He's not especially good as commanders go, just like Mithridates I, but maybe we'll just use him anyway, since his name is very literally on the empire. It probably would make sense for our prestige to have him do something at some point during his life. And we've also now sorted out Armenia, as you can see, public order stabilizing, just getting the food supply sorted out now while our army replenishes. So now we're jumping back over to investigate what Rhodos has behind the front line. The answer is absolutely tons of stuff. They control Pergamon and have multiple armies there, so going against these guys with just Mithridates might be challenging indeed, but as I said, we're just going to do it in order to try and get some new bonus objectives unlocked. So we'll just have to do what we can with our newly reformed army. It is time to betray Rhodos essentially, because we're still under some treaties with them when I declared war, because I forgot to bother to actually cancel our treaties. And I think even if you do cancel the treaty then declare war on them, that still counts as a betrayal. You have to wait some number of turns after the cancellation for it not to count. But whatever, now we're an untrustworthy faction. We'll see if that has any consequence, perhaps not. I rushed forwards to besiege Bithynia, and the situation doesn't look ideal, since they've got now 2 armies essentially with their fleet added in there, and we've only got 1 and we're outside. We need to get through their walls, so not an easy situation to deal with. I thought what we might be able to do though is just walk slightly back and stand here, because the enemy's army is sufficiently powerful. They probably think they can take Mithridates in a one-on-one, so this might cause them to come outside of the city to decide it in the field. We could kill them and then go back to attack the city with just the garrison. Fortunately, that's exactly what happened, so here they are, and the fight is in our favour, so that's nice. They've got lots of lower quality infantry, some inferior hoplites, area of recruitment axemen, and tons of slingers, so basically we have every advantage here. And we're even going to get the hill advantage. We can set up above them, although that said, the balance bar did shift to be the other way around once we were in the fight, so now the enemy apparently have the advantage. Don't really know what's going on, but anyway, we're just going to sit here and let them cover us in their big wide formation. We also, I noticed, have the sun behind us, which in a real world battle would give us a very large advantage, but of course in the game that unfortunately it doesn't do anything. Anyway, so they started their attack with some Jav-Cav coming up to our flanks to throw stuff into the front of our phalanx. That was okay by me, because here I had my own Jav-Cav ready to return fire. I also have my archers behind the hoplites, and I've got my Sparabara acting as a reserve on the right, who can use their bows to inflict damage on these Jav-Cav as well. So they're certainly going to lose this little skirmish. A similar thing was happening on the other end of the line. This time I didn't have as much stuff to throw back at them, but my local archers should be enough to win that tiny fight. Here comes a real cavalry unit though. They're going to hit the flank of my hoplites. Dangerous stuff, but I actually ordered them to move into the cavalry unit at the last second. So the unit turns and hopefully this will end up counting as a frontal engagement. Plus if we're very lucky the hoplites will apply a bonus against cavalry. Although as some people were saying in the comments to previous episodes, since they're technically a pike unit in this mod, they fight with swords in melee. So I don't know if they actually get their bonus against cavalry once they're fighting at close quarters. It might only be if they stay far back enough for them to be using their spears. Not really sure about that. Anyway, those cavalry were driven away by our attacks regardless. On the right flank we make a nice easy advance with Mithridates and our Javcav just chasing off enemy slingers, plenty of other slingers attacking in the centre along with all of their infantry. So here it's going to be some hoplite on hoplite action, and our guys are better, so that means we'll win eventually if we just leave them to it. Out on the left we caught the enemy's best unit, their cavalry again, with my own cavalry who aren't quite as good, but we've got twice the numbers and I was able to seal the deal here with some Spara Bara who completely encircled the enemy now, and they certainly do have a bonus against cavalry, so we'll be able to bring down those elite troops. My Javcav are doing a lot of work by coming around to the back of the enemy's army and attacking all of their slingers with almost impunity. The enemy can only really use their general to counterattack, but their general's in hoplite phalanx mode, so he's moving really slowly. So we've got plenty of time to rush around and attack these slingers and drive other ones out of the way. Our Javcav aren't all that good in melee, so it's still going to be a tiny bit of a contest, those fights, but at least it stops them using their main offensive talents, the slinging. One of our hoplite units got surrounded on the left end of the line, and I'm now trying to save them with our Galatians, who are rear attacking the guys making the rear attack on our hoplites. That didn't really work though, so that unit that was surrounded is going to take quite a lot of damage there. On the right, things are going pretty well. We're slowly folding around the whole enemy centre with our hoplite phalanx, and they're just kind of sliding forwards weirdly. I think the phalanx gradually pushes forwards after you've given them an attack order, but because that's a mod added feature, there's no animation for it, so I think it just pushes all of the units around with some physics there. On the other side, once again, we've taken out the enemy's cavalry, so now our cavalry will get to work on taking out all of the enemy's skirmishers, although our Javcav had to give up on doing that because the enemy general was getting too close. Plus we were taking some casualties on the Javcav because, as I said, they're not all that good in melee on their own. I brought around a couple of archers behind the enemy's army, a couple of units of archers I should say, in order to attack the enemy general, although actually it was only a couple of archers actually firing. The archer units do like to glitch out now and again. So we, in theory, rained arrows upon this unit, it just wasn't very many as it turns out, so that was my plan to get rid of them, not that it worked. The real action and the real thing that changed the battle was this attack. I got my Javcav to rear attack the enemy's levied units attacking our front line, and because they're only levies, they routed under the force of this attack, and that's going to gain us a decent advantage in numbers, and we can just keep doing the same thing to the other one. So at this point the battle just turns in our favour. All of those slingers and skirmishers who were having a hard time fighting our cav also retreat, and with so much stuff now retreating, it causes a chain rout among everything else. So suddenly we win, but the battle doesn't quite end here because we need to kill as many of them as we can. Since we were essentially luring them out for a fight outside of their fortifications, we need to kill as much stuff as possible before they can have a chance to get back inside, so that we can gain as much leverage as possible from this little win. Once all that's sorted out, it's a heroic victory. Very nice, so the plan seems to have worked. We've got the enemy outside of their walls and we've really heavily damaged them, so now the question is, can we make some good of this? Can we take the settlement specifically? Their general somehow survived there with basically nothing left, and a couple of units will escape as well. They're just going to go stand next to the settlement, but what happened was they just reinforced, and immediately another full stack was inside Bithynia, so we're still going to have a little bit of a fight by the looks of things. We've got our first set of reforms coming through, so that's good news. We can now recruit a few slightly better lower level units. We need the next set of reforms to get the really elite ones, but we can get some decent swordsmen and spearmen if we want to, but we'll continue on with our current army for now. Now what I discovered here by moving my spy back up towards Nicomedia was that they've got another army just outside the settlement, so not only have they put a full stack garrison inside, there's another one ready to reinforce, so things have actually got harder after all of that end turn, rather than easier as I would have hoped. What I'm going to do though is just charge in anyway. I'm going to attack this army outside the city, because it draws the garrison and the army inside out, and crucially it turns out the army just behind the city wasn't in reinforcement range, meaning this is potentially a winnable battle, so I'm going to do it just to get this chance, since we can once again attempt to destroy everyone inside the city in a field battle, and if it all goes very well, take it before that other army can come into play. So there was a long delay at the start of the battle while both sides were forming up. The enemy did get all of their troops together into one big army, since it took me so long to walk anywhere near them. But while they were doing it, I sent my cavalry forwards for a little bit of a strike, because they had this long line of skirmishers out on their left flank. They didn't have anything behind it, so I was free to just charge into them and start fighting with the skirmishers, and the enemy didn't even react. They didn't send anything over to try and stop me from doing this or save the skirmishers, so I will take this chance to just knock a couple of units out before the fight starts. I didn't want to be any more ambitious and start taking on units that were closer to the enemy centre, because I thought that really would rile them up and put my cavalry in danger. So instead I'm just going to get out of there for now. They did start slinging at me, so I would have taken some losses if I continued to fight in melees now that they're actually aggroed onto the cav. So we'll just wait behind their army for a chance to strike at them again later. Now once the two sides got a tiny bit closer, they did the same thing they did in the last fight. They sent some Jav Cav up to the flank to attack us on its own. Not really a good idea, because our archers will once again just kill them like last time. They also re-extended their left flank. You can see they put even more skirmishers way out on their own on the left. So because of that, my cavalry are now coming back in to just repeat the tactic we started off with again, to take down some more units. The Jav Cav are already gone. Now the rest of their skirmishers, who aren't in weird off positions, will now start attacking our main line. Our hoplite phalanx is going to have to deflect lots of stones and arrows as they get into position. Mithridates was adding himself into the attack on the enemy's left, because there were so many targets that the 2 units of heavy cav just weren't enough. We needed to exploit the enemy more before those skirmishers came back into the fight. I tried to outflank the enemy on our right using our Galatians, but the enemy caught me there, so no real luck, but we'll be able to win that melee they got caught into. And now the front line engagement is going to start. It's just a phalanx on phalanx fight. For the most part, we have the better phalanxes, because the enemy have lots of levied troops. They just have more of them, so they'll have a nice heavy line to push against us, but we're slightly uphill and we have more skill. The only exception is 1 unit of elite hoplites on the far right end of our line that is going to cause us some trouble. Some of the fights ended up using the actual spears of the hoplite phalanxes, because they were at a slight distance, but in many other cases they crushed into each other and went back to sword fighting. And in a lot of cases we've also got multiple units engaging just one of ours, so that's nice and efficient. It means we've got lots of free units to go and attack other things across the battlefield. Here goes some skirmishers and some lesser infantry once our Jav Cav goes in to attack them in melee. We've got our heavier cav right behind the enemy's army, just taking out skirmishers, also having finished off all the stuff over on the enemy's left flank. On the right end of our line, things weren't looking too good. The enemy folded around with some of their phalanxes, including their elite one, and started doing massive damage to my unit there. It's even considering routing because of the morale shock of fighting on the flanks while in phalanx formation, which is extra strong. I tried using a rear attack with my Galatians to clear the enemy out, but it just didn't do anything. Our guys weren't strong enough, and the enemy's elite hoplites were able to resist it and not rout. So that was a shame. On the very other end of the line, things are going a tiny bit better, using my Barra here to rear attack some of the enemy's spears. Unfortunately, those spears are better than mine, so it's not going to have a massive effect. Here's the real thing that's going to start sorting this mess out. Our cavalry, once they were done killing all those skirmishers, could be used to just freely cycle charge the really weak backs of these phalanxes, and in cases where it's just levy hoplites, they're going to be in huge trouble. They are not going to enjoy this at all. We've almost lost the end of our line there as the enemy keep pressing against us. I'm really trying to get these Galatians to do something, but it just wasn't working. By the looks of things, they were only attacking the elite hoplites, who I guess just don't really care about being rear attacked, so it wasn't making a difference. I couldn't save my men there. At least the main line is starting to clear up. My men pulling out from their first charge with loads of enemy troops having been routed already. we just need to do it again to keep it going. And here on our left, things very dodgy. We've just got a few troops holding back about a quarter of the enemy's army, just sitting in blobs, but as long as they can just keep things stable, we'll finish off everything else and then we'll be fine. Here comes Mithridates with a nice lancer charge into the back of one of the heavier hoplite units in the main line there. They're not enjoying that, as we can see, and we're going to be free to just do that as many times as we need to take the enemy down. Unfortunately, the hoplites on the end of our line were defeated. Their formation broke and they actually routed in a moment here. Just a big mess. We can't really tell what's going on, but at least we'll be able to surround that blob of enemies and try and take it on with all the troops that are being freed up by the fact that stuff's routing all over the place. I used a cavalry attack to finally bring some relief on our left flank. Didn't do all that much because it was just a normal spear unit who was able to withstand a cavalry attack, especially because it was going uphill. But it's still going to inflict casualties. We're attacking their general with archers, and he's probably not enjoying that. And at this point, the enemy's army just realizes they've lost too much stuff, and everything they have left is getting totally surrounded. They're going to try to escape, but because they were getting totally surrounded, that'll be difficult. So now I can focus down the best units, and in particular the garrison units, so that the town gets emptied out by this victory, and just kill as much as we can before things come to an end. Once that happens, it's another heroic victory for Mithridates. We have done the business. With this win, it may indeed be possible to take the settlement after all, after that little drama. We'll see what we can do next time.